Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the MMA Plug presented to you by Mile High Sports. We're coming to you live from the number 38 presented by Volo. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. You can give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. We want to first give a shout out to the whole Mile High Sports crew. Smash that like, share, and subscribe button wherever possible. Got Danny Bailey behind the boards holding it down for us. And want to give a huge thanks to my man, Trevor O'Connor, for coming in and joining us in studio today. Trevor is a retired MMA fighter here in the local area. He is a longtime MMA media person and media person in general within multiple roles, including giving me my very first commentary gig way back in the day, years and years ago with No Mercy Extreme Fighting. You may recognize him from his work as a viral sensation as a bounty hunter with other YouTube superstars like Patty Mayo. He is one half of the After the Final Bell podcast alongside Coach Mike Gonzalez, where you can catch new episodes on his massive Fox Recovery YouTube channel. That's Fox with 2 X's. Trevor, thank you for joining us.
I just need you to be my hype man every day.
Hey, got to build each other up, right?
That was 10 out of 10, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me in, dude. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll get through a little bit more and, talk more of Trevor's story, his journey, everything here in just a moment. But do want to give the announcement, ladies and gentlemen, this is our last week on Tuesday as far as the show goes, with the network's summer programming schedule starting next week. We'll be airing live on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. So just want to get that out there to you right away. Last day on Tuesday. Next week, as of the beginning of June, first week of June, we will be shifting to Wednesdays at 1 p.m. for the summer programming schedule here. And also, as another reminder, we covered this week's UFC card for the weekend on the last episode. So go check that episode, whether you're on Twitter, Spreaker, YouTube, wherever you're finding this content. Go check out that episode from last week. Do want to give a shout out to our friends of the program in the Hanyak, Dustin Jacoby, Markel Medeiros, and Macy Barber. They're all going to be getting after it this weekend. Trevor, any quick thoughts on the card?
Wow. Jacoby is moving. Like, everyone needs to just take notice. This is the reemergence of him. I think Jacoby is, I'd say, 2.0. This run is amazing. I'm very interested to see Macy Barber versus Aaron. That is a tough call for her. I mean, coming back off of some other issues and jumping in against Blanchfield is a huge fight.
Absolutely. And major implications for that, how that fight could go down. Make sure that you check out that full breakdown on YouTube from that episode last week, giving you the Colorado rundown real quick. If you have the opportunity to, please buy the tickets directly from the fighters, whether that is their paper ticket or through the online point of sale system. If you use their promo code, the name in the drop down, that definitely helps them. It gets them commission for these amateurs that are going to be, especially on a lot of these local cards, the majority of local cards. That's how they get paid. That's also a big portion of how they can leverage themselves for future opportunities, is by the amount of tickets that they can sell and what tickets can be directly attributed to them on a card. So please, if you can, get those tickets from them. We have a fight going down this weekend in Northern Colorado. It is been called the NoCo Showdown for Sparta Sports and Entertainment, going down at the Island Grove in Greeley, Colorado. You actually just had you had one of the Gonzalez brothers.
I had both of them on.
Yeah,
I had Justin and Vinny on my podcast just last week. Vinny looks great, in shape, ready to go. I saw him running some hills the other day. So very interested to see how this goes for Vinny, as he had a 9-year layoff between his last fight, which, I mean, I don't know anybody else that's taken 9 years off between fights. So that'll be an interesting point, but he's still a young guy. He is now married and recently has a small child. So he wants to just kind of prove to himself that he can get out there and get it done again.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully Vinny goes out there and finds every bit of that, I guess, closure, if you will, to put this chapter on it as far as fighting and chasing that dream for him there. Also want to just shout out J-Train, friend of the program as well. In a couple of weeks, we have the return of Colorado Combat Club. That is going to be at the Stampede on Friday the 13th. We have the full countdown episode that is going to be coming out soon. So make sure that you follow Colorado Combat Club on all the social channels there for more updates and more of that as we get closer to fight night. On June 21st, we have Guerrilla Fighting Championship. That is going to be their first show. It's going down at the Pueblo Convention Center. You have a couple of stalwarts of the Southern Colorado MMA scene. AJ Robb is going to be taking on Darian Robinson in the main event. You also have the Steel City Kid, Nico Cornejo, fighting in his hometown and in his backyard there in the co-main event. So be sure to check them out on June 21st. The next week after that, we have on Friday night, the Stampede 5280 Thai Fight Series going down, a couple of pro Thai fights on that card, as well as a multitude of early elimination bouts happening. Then the next night in Colorado Springs, you have Battle MMA Championships happening at the Colorado Springs City Hub. Friend of the program, Relentless Chris Alone, is going to be on that card. He's making his pro debut. I really think that that kid is one of the future breakout stars that could come from the Colorado scene. He's, as we talked to him on the program, a member of Team USA Kickboxing. He's had between 60, 70 plus kickboxing fights all over the world already at this stage in his early 20s. This kid has a decorated amateur MMA career, and now he's making that turn into the professional ranks. And he just has, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. He has that it factor about him, Trevor.
I love
He's just
that.
one of those kids.
I love that when you talk to a kid or you walk into a gym and you see a kid working out and you just automatically go, oh, there's one.
Exactly.
There's
and he just has that kind of confidence about him to where, and because he's been doing it his whole life, his parents were fighters. His parents own the gym that he's grown up and trained in. His brother is also a fighter. But he just has that sort of collective confidence about him to where he's like, hey, I don't really have to prove anything to you. Like, all I'm doing this to go out there and chase this for me. I don't need to make you feel impressed because I'm going to do enough of that for me.
And when you grow up in a gym or in that situation, that's a kid that's going to have nerves of steel. He's not going to get shook. No matter how bright the lights are, no matter how big the stage is, that guy's probably had more rounds than anybody else on the card, just the way he grew up.
Absolutely. Transitioning from that, this last weekend, there was no card in the UFC, but we did have a first of its kind event here in the Denver area. We had CJJC Presents Grapple Games 1 Car-Jitsu powered by Valor Minds. We had the opportunity to have you in the house for the show there over at DCO with us as well. I believe this was a successful first event. Now that we have an actual proof of concept, I think that our next events with Grapple Games and especially these Car-Jitsu shows going forward are going to be even bigger.
I love the concept. Anytime we can showcase jiu-jitsu in a way that makes it exciting for new watchers and available for people who maybe don't have the slow jiu-jitsu mental power to sit through an entire tournament of just technical ABC jiu-jitsu. Let's showcase it in ways that it can be done in real life, in public.
Absolutely. And in lieu of what you just said right there, Anthony Delgado of the Farm BJJ up there in Greeley came down and he took home the honors of our first champion at Grapple Games with 2 first-round submissions. I mean, you could tell that he was prepared for the format. He's done, he said he's done another show like this before in the past about a year ago and just had some training partners who also competed in a Car-Jitsu show and were willing to go through those sort of just the rounds and the preparation to know that, all right, I'm reaching for a seatbelt. This is where the pressure is going to be off of, the side of the car, where the seat is, right, so on and so forth, because his first submission was a punch choke that he used the leverage of the side of the car on the opposite side. So, he was well aware of the different objects or how to use the car as a weapon.
And I think that's going to be key. Obviously, going forward, I see a lot of guys becoming very competitive when they bring Car-Jitsu back. I mean, how do you train for it? Does mom let you go in the family, the Roadster, and while she's getting groceries, do you and you and a training partner just go at it in the parking lot?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I feel like it's it's not the easiest thing to train for, like you say, because I mean, there's feet and elbows and everything flying all over the place, heads, all of that. In the competition car, the glass is removed.
Sure.
Unless you have an extra vehicle that's out there kind of sitting, or something
Your
that
gym
you can
is your
gimmick.
gym just going to have a vehicle that you can pull in on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. to train some Car-Jitsu?
Yeah, exactly. But it does have some real world applicability, in some scenarios that you may very well in a self-defense situation find yourself in. And there's some mainstream examples of that where you've had some jujitsu used in movies like John Wick and so on and so forth. So
Absolutely.
I don't know, it's a very fast-paced action, and I was a fan of it. I really didn't know, like, I knew that I was excited for what was about to happen, but I just wasn't exactly sure as to what was going to unfold. And I was pleasantly surprised beyond even what my wildest expectation was.
Yeah, I love it. I really enjoy the fact that the Paprockies are willing to step outside of the box, take the risk, be seen as the black sheep, or whatever, from the rest of the traditional combat sports world here in Colorado and regionally, and put it on the line. I mean, this is how they make a living. I mean, they own a gym, but I mean, they're putting on the CJJC pro matches, and then always adding something to it. At the last CJJC, we saw an incredible altered rules wrestling match. That was probably the highlight of their entire show. I'm sure you talked about that.
Oh, yeah,
but then they come back with Car-Jitsu, and I think everybody at traditional gyms and in those spaces all wanted to turn their nose up to it and wanted it to probably fail. It didn't. They probably all started watching it when the hype happened, and now there'll be another gym or another place that decides they're going to do it because the ground has been laid.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just kind of the live event business in general. It's a copycat world in that sense, but and to be fair, we wouldn't be putting on this Car-Jitsu show if we hadn't seen it from others who initially decided, hey, let's put this in an actual competition style
100%.
format. And hey, if it allows for the opportunity for, as Anthony Delgado said in his post-fight interview, if it allows me the opportunity to go compete and have a chance to make some money in the process, call my line anytime that you have the opportunity to say that there's money on the line. And he went out there and competed like there was a payday in the process. So I can appreciate that from the competitor side of things. But before getting too far down that rabbit hole with them, let's switch up and let's talk you a little bit here, Trevor. First off, again, real quick, where can people follow you? Where can people subscribe to the show? What's your preferred format? So on and so forth.
Oh man. So, all of our podcasts are on YouTube. If you search Fox Recovery, FOXX Recovery, you'll find us there. We just did episode 54 the other day, so we're cooking right along. You can find me on Instagram at Trevor_does_it. We have TikTok, of course. That would just be Trevor Does It. We are in the middle of launching a brand new channel as well called Team Awesome Podcast Studios, in which we are bringing in people from all over the area who want to have a podcast, want to put it out there, maybe don't have the technical ability or the equipment. So we launched an entire channel just to give people the opportunity to see if they have the chops.
Okay, nice. Just basically, see, is this something that you really want to do? And I feel like for a lot of folks, where the issue is once you get past the honeymoon stage of a couple of episodes, can you stay consistent and continue to follow
Absolutely.
through?
I tell people all the time, I need a sustainability plan. Show me how this show happens 52 times a year. Show me how that goes, because most people have a really good idea and about 45 minutes worth of material, and then it starts to run dry. And episodes 2, 3, and 4, all of a sudden, it's the same pony, same trick, and you never see episode 5.
Yeah, I don't know what the statistics are, but I would probably venture to say that there's a large volume on any of the podcast hosting services that they never exceed that 4 and 5 episode mark or 4 and 5
Yeah,
upload
under
mark.
10 is the fail rate.
That's
If you're going to
right in
quit, you're
line.
going to quit in under 10 episodes.
Totally understand.
And I think
that.
a lot of that is people have an unrealistic expectation. They think they're going to record a podcast, put it out, and it's going to get thousands of listens or views immediately because they feel like what they have to say is important. Unfortunately, everybody has a podcast. So you have to either catch lightning in a bottle and it just catches, because sometimes that happens, or you have to be willing to post to nobody for as long as it takes to get heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, by no means, by any stretches, this the biggest MMA show in the world, but we do have a pretty big voice within the space.
Absolutely.
And we're coming up on just shy of 200 episodes. So, that's 5 years in the works, basically,
Right.
in that stage, So I think that, just as you mentioned, people don't realize the long game that it really takes to maintain that voice or to really kind of establish some true consistency.
Absolutely.
And to have the credibility that goes along with it. Because as you said, everybody can have a flash in the pan idea, but can you do it for
Right.
test of time? Is
Well,
that something that you could bring every week?
And the other part of it is you may have an amazing idea for you.
You're interesting. That very good point. Very good.
You know, I mean, are you going to get thousands of people that want to listen to you talk about that one thing?
Certainly. But as a very interesting man, who has worn many hats, why don't you give us a little bit of the 30,000-foot view of how we got here, training to being in the media, going on in the bounty hunter world, where the very first time, when I saw one of the videos that popped up on my feed, I don't know if it was on Facebook or where it was, and I'm like, is that Trevor?
I probably get 20 to 30 DMs a week from people that I know outside of that show, that someone stole one of our clips, put it up on TikTok or put it up as a reel, and they see it. And then it's always two messages. Bloop. One is the link to whatever they saw. And the second message is that you?
I'm not surprised, because that's exactly what I thought the first time. I was like, that looks just like Trevor. And I knew that, and when it had popped up, it was not too long after you had surgery.
Okay.
And so I was thinking, like, oh, is this him out here in the field? Like, because I didn't know what at the stage of with your shoulder with recovery and everything. I'm like, maybe that's him, maybe it's not. And then I look closer and I see the ears.
Oh, then giveaway.
Yeah, the ears, and then the tattoo, the tattoo on your hand. I saw that, and I was like, it's him. Like, holy crap. Wow.
It was a weird road to get there, I'll tell you that. So a long time ago, like 2009, 2010, I actually did internet-based radio out of the 5 Points Media Building on like 29th and Welton. And it was awesome. A great experience. And through that, I got to work in FM radio for a while and have some fun there. But it just wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. But I leveraged that into being able to cover local and regional MMA as a writer. So I wrote for Brawlin way back, Brawlin Combat Gear. We used to have, a big media coverage of, this area. And then Shameless MMA, myself and Matt Sierra, and of course Connor. But that show really kind of kicked it off and got the bug started. And interestingly enough, Matt Sierra challenged me one day to try jujitsu. He's like, you won't last a week. I promise. Come to my gym. You won't last a week. I was like, come on, dude. I can do anything. He's like, no, you won't last a week. Well, I went, and then 9 years later, I was a brown belt and forgot to stop going.
It's kind of how the training goes sometimes, right?
Yeah. And it was amazing. Obviously, off of that training, you get the bug and you decide, man, maybe just one fight. I just want to see, do I have it? Like, could I, and I went on a nice little run. I fought like 4 times in 6 months for Steve Alley in Kickdown, won a title. And to me, I mean, that was kind of the precipice of my MMA. I mean, I was over 40 at the time. I won a title. What was I going to do from there? There's no better time to just go, hey, man, it was a fun run. Through my fight career, I had a sponsor who was a bail bond company. And as I retired from fighting, they said, hey, would you be interested in helping us out? And I was like, help you out? How? He said, well, you know, when people run on bond, we have to go get them. And we need someone who's level headed and can handle themselves physically in a situation. And I thought, I mean, adrenaline is my thing. Let's do this. So I hooked up with them, and like for 7 years, 6.5, 7 years, I was an actual bounty hunter here in Colorado, tracking down people who absconded from their court cases or court dates. And it was great. Through that, some mutual friends of mine connected me with the guy on YouTube everybody knows is Patty Mayo. I think he's at 11.5 million subscribers right now on his channel. Yeah. And so he and I hooked up and started filming. And I mean, it was great because we played off each other so well. He's so crazy and rambunctious, and I'm very calculated. And I go with the dry humor, and he goes with kind of the crazy over the top stuff.
Catches me even when we do commentary sometimes, like, because I'm usually the one who has Danny over here getting completely red and zingered up, and then sometimes Trevor's the only one who out one-liners me. He's the only one to out one-liner me.
I get lucky once in a while. Once in a while. So based off of what Pat and I were doing, we decided that it would make way more financial sense to just launch a second channel for me, which is Fox Recovery. So basically we had an agreement that he would be on all of my episodes and I would be on all of his. And we just created a really cool synergy. Ended up right now, I think I'm 552,000 subscribers on my channel. And we had a great time, man. We filmed a lot of episodes. Really had some good times. Traveled around in RVs, filming wherever, filmed in California, filmed in Florida, filmed in Denver, Oregon. And it was great. My body was already beat up when it started, and it only got worse because on that show, it is what they call faux reality. It's based on what you believe bounty hunters do, you know, the lore of bounty hunters. We just took that and kind of created a show out of it. But being faux reality, like we never talked to the participants ahead of time, only the producers did. So we never saw them. There was no like buddy. It was, I got to get them, and they had to be mad at us. So all the violence is real, all the punches, all the tear gas, all the tasers, all the rubber rounds, all of that is real and awesome to film right up until you're just so beat up that you just can't do it anymore. So last year in November, my wife, Kristen, and I decided, you know, we sat down and had many, many talks and just decided it was time for us to come home. Okay. And she said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to do a podcast. She's like, well, it's about time. So I called Mike Gonzalez, who is a lifelong friend of mine and also my striking coach throughout my entire career. And I said, hey, Mike, I'm only making one phone call. I'm going to do a podcast, and you're the only call I'm making. So it's either going to be me or it's going to be me and you. And he's like, what's it about? And I was like, my concept is I used to do a show called The Final Bell with Ron Goldstein. Amazing guy and a microphone. I said, I want to kind of play off that, and we're going to turn it into After the Final Bell. And the tagline on the show is what happens when an adrenaline fueled career comes to an end and real life begins. Because Mike was a fighter, retired from fighting. Now he's a coach. Obviously his wife is UFC flyweight JJ Aldrich. And like, he doesn't have that outlet to get that adrenaline the same as, but we're still alive. Right. I said, well, let's try this. And he was like, I'm in. So we've done, excuse me, I'm sorry. We've done 2 podcasts a week since the middle of November. So episode 54 goes up this week, and we've just been cranking, and it's an amazing time. It really is. It's right where I want to be. And at the age that I'm at, I'm in a spot where I'm okay not being in the mix.
That's very well said as far as that goes. In terms of, just to put a bow on it with your time out there that you spent in the field, I guess if you had to name one though for for all of that time that you spent as a
Mhm.
recovery agent, what was maybe the most memorable time or the most memorable experience? Maybe it was just because of the whole set of circumstances. Maybe
Mhm.
it was the interaction with the person. What was, if there was one that you had to say or put a thumb on that sticks out to you, what would that one be?
I have a couple examples. I'll give them quickly. One of them, I chased a gentleman. We'll call him JM because I don't need to out him. He's probably had enough trouble in his life. He was on the run for 2 years, and he was on the run from a lot of different bail bond companies. And I ended up with the file, and the file was so beat up because every recovery agent in Colorado had made a run at this guy. And everyone was like, here, you're supposed to be the man. Let's see what you can do. Excuse me. Sorry. And so I ended up connecting with his baby mama, got her to set him up to go to a McDonald's Playland to see the kid. And I had 5 agents staged in the McDonald's. And obviously the want is to take people down very, very smooth, calm, like nothing happened. I actually let the guy sit there for like 20 or 30 minutes having a visitation with his kid. And then the baby mom and the kid got up to leave. And right when they got up, we stepped in and ended up having a full on brawl in a McDonald's Playland.
Yeah, that would stick out as a memory.
Yeah. Yeah. That one was very interesting.
Pure melee in that sense.
Yeah. I have video of it. I'll show you sometime.
Oh yeah. I'd love to see that. Transitioning here real quick here, folks. Now we have a couple of hot topics and a very well-spoken mind or a well-thought person. And we had a little bit of a conversation about this over the weekend with one of these topics, but let's go through a couple of these here, Trevor.
Okay.
I think it's an incredible time to be a fan of combat sports. There's never been more platforms or more events of all different sorts and even little spin-offs of particular disciplines. But it's kind of a troubling time for the competitors, or maybe not necessarily say specific disciplines. Maybe it's a better or more prosperous time for grapplers, if you will, than it was in the past. But if you're a veteran MMA fighter, and if you are, say, someone who has what we would maybe call tenured status, you've gone through a couple of contracts worth in the UFC to where you're past that, kind of 20 and 20 kind of benchmark as far as fight purse pay goes. If you get released from the UFC, especially if you're a stateside fighter, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place now at this point. You're not getting a sniff from one championship in most senses or in most cases, because they're probably already thinking, well, if they didn't want you, why would we then want to bring you over here and spend all of that money? Bellator is dead. We've seen the way that PFL operates, and they can't really afford to pay anyone with a name, a la the recent release of Patchy Mix now coming over to the UFC in a couple of weeks. The GFL folded before it even got off the ground. The choices are basically to go back to the regional scene for a literal fraction of what your UFC purse would have been. I mean, pennies on the dollar. Or to try to maybe take a bare knuckle fight just at a chance of a halfway decent payday. I think that some of this stems, though, too, that fighters will never unionize to collectively bargain like we've seen in some of the other sports. And especially with the antitrust lawsuit being settled, I don't know if there's any hope for things to get better on the horizon.
I don't know what the fix could be. The UFC obviously holds the purse strings, which, if you don't agree with that, I don't know what sport you're watching. Bellator or PFL is not going to pay you anything near what the UFC is going to pay you. So if they cut you, really, your only avenue would be to fall back to like a Fury or an LFA and try to catch fire a second time and maybe get another run at the UFC, or possibly a bare knuckle fight, which is, I mean, I love watching it. I think it's amazing. The action is unprecedented. It's the most fast-paced combat sport. Would you agree? I mean, there's no feeling
sure.
out
No, not at
in
all.
bare knuckle.
And
It's
you start on a line 12 inches apart from
right.
each other.
So those guys that have been cut, we've seen some guys make a second run. Hopefully, being tenured, they were somewhat smart with their money, made some investments, hopefully in a business that could give them longevity and allow them to continue to train and maybe make another run. Maybe, if another promotion pops up. I saw all of these fighters get their hopes up on the GFL signing and, these huge contracts they were signing people to. And anybody who was really standing outside of that circle looking in was like, there's no way this doesn't happen. These are all people that a large majority of the fighters that got signed to GFL have already had their button pushed too many times, which means their jaws are not what they used to be. You're not getting guys that are going to be able to slug it out. These would have been fights that would have lasted 1 to 2 rounds. And as soon as someone really got touched, they're going down. So that wasn't a possibility, really. I mean, if that was your plan, you need to make better plans, because we know that wasn't going to happen. But what do? Collective bargaining it's hard, because what are these stars who are making, 3, 4, 5 million a fight, paid their dues to get there? How do they collectively bargain to get the guy on the 8-8 deal better money? I mean, it's going to come out of their pocket. The guys making money have to agree to take less, because the UFC is not going to come out of pocket for more. Their budget is, they're smart guys. They know what their budget is. They're not going to just go, okay, never mind, guys. You guys still make 5 million, but we're going to bring all of you guys up to a minimum of 50-50.
And that's where it gets into some of the whole talk with the revenue split and the share and all of that, they're sub 20% and whatnot. But where I think people also, to a certain extent, and it's not to, where some people will say like, oh, you're taking the UFC bootlicker stance, so on and so forth. But what people also don't recognize is a lot of the reinvestment of that overall revenue that the UFC
Look at
puts
all
back in.
of the
These
training
PIs,
facilities.
exactly.
Yes.
These PIs, all of their support services, the doctors, the nutritionists, just the meals that they provide for free, all of those things, that all costs. That all is something that has to come from somewhere. But the overall answer is just like how or at least to how they would collectively bargain, or maybe have a shift in how much of that revenue is diverted their way. They would have to all collectively come together and have a work stoppage. And that's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen. They will always consistently be willing to undercut each other. But yeah, so that's where, just as you mentioned, I really don't know what the answer is. I thought that our best shot was going to be, for a congressional intervention via the antitrust lawsuit, if that had continued. But with the settlement, there's no help on the horizon. The only thing that would be is if you have someone who is some sort of major player or has some sort of voice within the TKO shareholder situation or within the hierarchy of that conglomerate. That would be the only way that I see anything happening. But right now, the model works for them to continue to turn a profit.
Well, let's look at this from a pure business standpoint. We're talking about capitalism.
Right.
If I own the company, I can decide what the trinkets, fighters, or whatever are worth, and I'm going to offer them that pay. The recourse that somebody has is to decide not to work for that company. It's
where do you go?
Yeah, well,
and then
go do it better.
And then they say, "Oh, but we're not a monopoly."
It's not. It's not a matter of that. There's opportunities. All Bellator, PFL, all of these other promotions have popped up and made a run at it. And it's not like the UFC goes over there and crushes them. The UFC is like, sign who you sign, do what you do. We're going to be over here in our lane doing what we do. It's not like there's not a monopoly in that someone can't do it.
That's fair.
Someone can do it. There is the opportunity there. It's a great American dream. The opportunity's there. No one's been able to meet it. So now we have to say, you guys are too good at your job. So we have to take away from you so that one of these other promotions can maybe keep up. Or, I mean, they're still paying the UFC on the low end of their scale is still paying better than most of these other promotions paid their middle tier fighters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So everyone being mad at the UFC, I get it, but it's not realistic. It's a business. They're running it like a business with the opportunity for anyone. If you want to make more money, the UFC is not opposed to paying you more money. You just have to show them why you're worth more money. We've seen guys come in and to the moon. Look at a guy like Justin Gaethje. Okay, PFL champ. Did very well. Everything is there. Comes over to the UFC. They saw his value coming in. He did not start at 8-8. He did not start at 12-12. He had value when he came in. They paid him what his value was on the way in the door.
And they've got their return and then some all the way along.
Oh,
the way,
100 times.
That was there was a video that just got put out by one of the big MMA YouTube channels out there, MMA On Point, do phenomenal essay and like list form type of work, but he was on the list of one of the top or most hyped prospects for signed free agent signees of all time. They just talked about because the recent Patchy Mix signing and some of these other guys in the recent history. But yeah, I mean, I think Justin Gaethje has to be one of the most delivered on free agent signings.
And that's the thing. The hype was there, and then he showed up and delivered. And when you show up to the UFC and you deliver, doors open.
Absolutely.
Avenues happen. They will make sure you're getting yours.
This is something, though, right now, to switch to a different topic, something that we've talked about on a multitude of occasions here on this program, but, you know, have another, again, a very wise voice within the game to speak on this and want to hear some of your insight. But judging continues to be a black eye on the sport. We don't know, or we'll never know, in my opinion, what the best system is for scoring or what the best judging option is, unless we try some different options and models. You know, I do give a kudos to Kansas for trying out the open scoring system.
I am a huge proponent of open scoring.
I have mixed feelings on open scoring itself. I think that there's good and there's bad.
What's the bad?
I think that the bad is if you have a judge that maybe they are unsure of themselves and they see that in a what could have possibly been a close round, or maybe they just they botched it. They missed a round. There's the human element that could come into play, that they want to play catch up, or they're the dissenting judge. The other two judges scored it for the other fighter in that round, and like, oh, and then they hear the boos from the crowd as soon as the score is flashed or as soon as it's made aware. Then they think, oh no, I messed up. We see it happen with balls and strikes in baseball with umpires. That's my correlative, is there's a human element that they would potentially want to play catch up. And then, okay, well, let's say after that, they think they messed up in the first round. Makeup calls. Absolutely. Then the second round, that might be a really close fight, or maybe it's second into the third, whatever it may be. And then that next round is really close, but they think, okay, well, this is my get back, and now I have to score it for this. You
don't think that happens outside of open scoring?
I think that it absolutely does, but I think that adding the element of showing it has the potential for it to increase.
I love the idea of showing it, because we then see referees and judges who make bad round calls, who make bad decisions as far as judging goes. And then the only byproduct of that is almost demanding that those referees, after the fact, explain their card, explain why. You know, I is open. Just because you were the one judge that saw it this way and the other two judges saw it that way doesn't mean you're wrong. But I need you to stand up and say, I judged it this way because. And I think the anonymity that's going on in judging right now, where they just kind of slide the scorecards across the table, it gets read and everybody's like, wow. I think that needs to go away. There should almost be a press conference held with the judges after every major MMA event.
Agreed.
And if there's a questionable call, let the press say, hey, how did you see that 30-27 when there was no control, no damage, I mean, the fighter that you scored this 30-27 for, is on his way to the hospital, and the guy that you scored it against is clean and clear. How? Why?
Agreed.
I think at that point, referees and judges become more accountable. And I think it weeds out guys who maybe are, throwbacks to the old guard and don't understand MMA as well, and opens doors for guys like a Chris Lieben to come in, who's been in the sport, understands the sport, knows the difference between, stalling, riding someone on top, or someone from the bottom actually attempting things and giving them the benefit of their submission attempts from the bottom or damage that's created from the bottom, instead of just saying, oh, fighter A's on top, 3.5 minutes. Right. He gets that whole round.
But I think that is something that sheds light on an even bigger issue on the administrative side of things, is that we have to deal with all the red tape of all the individual commissions in the first place. But
right.
then within those, they're ran like such good old boys clubs in a lot of situations that there are more qualified people that are, I can speak to it from the Colorado side of things right now.
Yeah.
There are more qualified people that are waiting for those opportunities to be a judge, waiting for those opportunities to be a referee. And just based off of the current personnel situation, they won't get those until this wave of the
you got to wait for someone to retire.
So that's kind of what we're up against. And unfortunately, that's not really anything that we can get through on that end. But
this is also an opportunity for a company as powerful and as strong as the UFC to start pushing things in a direction that says this is what MMA judging is.
Agreed.
When you have TKO and all their money, and everyone wants to talk about UFC monopoly, that okay, well, now we have an organization that can put the pressure on the judges, because we've seen Dana say we're never coming back here.
Right.
And that commission goes, ouch.
Oh, definitely. And that's where I just feel like there has to be some more of a formal review and sanctioning process for the repeat offenders. And, again, there's a lot of different options that people have proposed or suggested throughout the years of potential judging models. And I also understand that on a macro level or on a major organization level, it's not necessarily the most feasible or realistic for those first-time changes to be implemented at the UFC level.
No.
But that's where I like seeing some of these other jurisdictions like Kansas, or some of these, maybe these smaller markets that are testing out some of these particular concepts, to where,
because they're going to attract
concept.
They show proof of concept, and because they're willing to go first, the big promotions are going to go, yeah, let's put a show on in Kansas City.
Right.
We'll put a small show. We'll put a fight night show on in, Wichita or something, and give them the opportunity to show out what they're doing. And I think the UFC is a company that rewards situations like that, in the same way that we've seen the UFC reward other promotions for kind of working the program that gets fighters ready to come to the UFC. We see it with LFA. We see it with Fury. Everybody knows that you can hot track through LFA if you, dot your I's and cross your T's and work through the system. They know that the fighters that are there are AAA, ready to go. They're going to take a call. Why can't the same thing happen with commissions across the country? We're not going to go to your city because you guys can't get it together as a group.
Exactly. And then sometimes you also see, this is just one last thing from my end, with the appointments that get made, we usually at times see some sort of snafu when they're in a new market for a bigger UFC card, because that commission wants to insert their guy for one of those shows. And hey, I'm not against trying to give your guy the opportunity, but also
your guy better be the right guy.
Cases, exactly. They are not prepared for the stage, whether that be the doctor that is used, that be some of the judges, the official that's used, whatever it may be. We've seen it from all around the world.
Everything that you just mentioned, we've seen a problem with, and it's usually in a newer market. We see a doctor who stops a fight because there's a language barrier or an understanding, or what he sees as an injury necessary of stoppage. We've seen 100 times as the fighter can go on.
Yep, absolutely. But that puts a button on it for us here. Trevor, real quick again, where can people follow you? Where can people subscribe as well?
Sure. Find me on YouTube, Fox Recovery, FOXX Recovery. Also on the Instagram at Trevor_does_it.
There you have it right there, folks. Make sure that you give him a follow along there. Check out the podcast. It's great conversation with him and Coach Mike. Also, go back through and watch some of those recovery videos. I mean, they're
entertaining.
It's entertaining. Exactly. That's the best way to say it. I mean, if you like what I could say, you like that white monster can energy type of stuff out there.
We have all the Kyles.
Following that just the wave of what the kids on the internet are saying. They got that monster can energy type of talk or whatever the young ones are saying. But folks, after the break, we're going to be chatting with Rebecca La Mariposa Watford. She is going to be fighting this weekend for the WBC title. Make sure that you check her out. Give her a follow. If you have the opportunity to check out the pay-per-view this weekend, please do so. Want to give a big thank you to Trevor for joining us here in studio today. Want to give a thank you to Danny behind the boards, holding it down for us each and every week. Make sure that you smash that like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. Give me a follow along online at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. Stick around after the break. We'll be talking with Rebecca La Mariposa Watford.
Ludacris going in on the verse, cause I never been defeated and I won't stop now. Keep your hands up, get them in the sky for the homies that ain't making it, my folks locked down. I never went nowhere, but they saying Luda's back. Blame it on that contour, the hood call it Luda Yak. And I'm on this foolish track, so I spit my foolish flow. My hands go up and down, like strippers' booties go. My verses still be serving, tight like a million virgins. Last time on a college remix, now I'm on the original version. Can't never count me out.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the MMA Plug presented to you by Mile High Sports. I'm your host, Jordan Kurtz. I am joined here with a special guest. I have La Mariposa, Rebecca Watford. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
First off, before we get too deep into the thick of things, where can people follow you?
Instagram, mariposa.muay thai. Facebook too, same thing. I don't have a TikTok. I don't have anything else. So just Instagram.
Oh yeah, I mean I feel like that's, I don't know, that the premier platform at this stage. I don't really use TikTok either, but maybe you could say that's an ageist thing at this point. I'll put myself into that bracket at this stage. But get down to business here. You've got some big plans this weekend. Why don't you share a little bit about the details?
Yeah, so I'm heading up to Canada to fight for the WBC international belt at 110 pounds. Took that short notice. Yeah.
So that being said, I know it's short notice, but does it being a title fight impact any of that little bit of preparation time that you have or the mindset at all? Or is it just, hey, like this is a fight, we're going up there, we're going into enemy territory and trying to get the job done?
All the above. I mean, to be honest, like fighting for a WBC belt is my dream. And I've been grinding in the sport for well over a decade. And that's always been something that I've wanted to do and like kind of just in my head, like, oh, that'll never happen. And here it is. So when the opportunity popped up, of course, I just grabbed it. And, like I fought in Thailand for almost 2 years and it was always just like, you fight next week. So for me, like having a fight in 1 week isn't anything new. Just Thai style. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, I mean, that I guess kind of leads perfectly into the segue for my next question. And I've got to give you some of your flowers here because I feel like, I get to be in a fortunate position that, from my vantage point where I get to see the growth and the evolution of a lot of fighters just from my position within the business and seeing how time just allows for that journey to evolve and continue to develop for people. And, your story is no exception to that. From the time when you fought for us in Combat Club a few years ago to then following you along in the journey over to Thailand, seeing you basically break through some barriers that most people could never even dream of, no matter where they started in the stage, going on fighting in some of the big stadiums, fighting for one championship, doing some really big things within the sport. Now that you're back here stateside, you have a lot more merits, if you will, to your resume. Like I say, that's just something, how can you share a little bit more about your journey and just kind of reflect and share some depth on what you kind of just said, but add some more to it?
I think just don't give up. I'm really hard-headed and stubborn, and when I set my mind to something, I do it. And I love the sport. Like I would do it anyway. But I just never gave up on myself. So that's sort of the big message I think that I hope that people will take from me is just don't give up on yourself. Just push and listen. Like I'm very fortunate that the past couple years I've been surrounded by people who've given me good advice, who have taught me and led me. And I'm very fortunate, like in Phuket with Singa, Apex, like I just to be surrounded by people who are super supportive and pushing me. So yeah.
And you kind of mentioned it earlier, but would you say that that time that you spent in Thailand kind of served as a catalyst to be able to just have that gamer mindset and mentality to say that, you know what, hey, yeah, this is a big goal, this is a big challenge ahead of me on just a few days' notice, but this is something that I've done before, this is not necessarily uncharted territory.
Oh, absolutely. Like I'm not, of course I'm like, I haven't fought in a year. Um, but in Thailand I fought every week. A couple of times that I fought twice a week. So like even when I had like a bigger fight in Thailand, they'd say, okay, you go fight in a smaller stadium, practice warm-up fight. We call it a warm-up fight. So I was fighting like once a week. This obviously is not a warm-up fight, but I'm kind of used to like, all right, we're fighting next week. Cool. That definitely helps like with just being able to like stay calm and focused, but like not like feeling too much pressure in this moment. Because really there's no pressure on me at all for this fight. I have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
That being said, you kind of relish in this underdog role. Where
Oh
does
yeah.
that mindset come from, or where does that come from?
I don't know. There's something like inside me that just loves it. Um, I don't know. I think I'm just kind of used to it. I think part of like my dog mentality, if you will, I don't know what to call it, just like the grinding mentality I have is that, like I got picked on in school. Like I've never been the popular girl. I've never been, like I've always been like picked last. So like to get anything in life, I've always had to grind. So just like being the underdog and being the away team is familiar territory for me. And I've come out of it on top my whole life. So just being in that situation is just like familiar and feels good.
I'm sure, this is probably a little bit of an element to it as far as just the actual X's and O's or the logistics on the field or on the mat, if you will, when you're training. But being that you're on the smaller end of women as far as weight classes already, that means that you're probably not having a lot of training partners in the room that are women that are your size. In general, there's not a lot of women out there just comparatively and say, with guys that are going to be in the training room, you're going to have more guy training partners, I'm sure, especially, but there's not many guys that are that small either. So
No.
it's always going to be bigger people that you're training with. And, for lack of a better term, you're having to deal with some bully tactics at times in the room with training and whatnot. Cause it's like, hey, like, we're trying to flow here, but at the same time, like my flow, you're not really respecting anything. So I got to go out here and I got to kind of earn it a little bit. Does that kind of play in?
Yeah, I guess there's probably a little bit of Napoleon syndrome.
Like a
For
little
sure.
scrappy do mentality?
Yeah, especially like coming up in Argentina. So I started doing this in Argentina and the gym there is like every sparring session was a hard sparring session. And I was even smaller back then. So like I definitely came up with that scrappy duo, like I gotta make you respect me in the training room. For sure. Yeah. And that does come out in the fights.
Who have been some of your training partners and coaches that have been helping you prepare for this?
Brian Medina, he has a fight coming up as well, June 27th. He's been helping me a lot. Thank you for standing southpaw for me. But he's got a very similar style, we think, to my opponent. So we've been sparring with him a lot. Austin Stryker has been holding pads for me. Been a great, giving me some great like tips and tools. He's naturally a southpaw, so it's great to have that as well. John Kitty, I've been on the phone with him a lot. Yeah, those are like the big three right now this week that have been stepping up. Max Madarski as well has been really like helpful. So those are the big three this week or big four this week that have been really helpful.
Awesome.
And the
Awesome.
chaos of trying to put something together.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of time to put it together, but you're always kind of in camp or you're always training, so it's just more or less now, maybe a little bit more direction and purposed, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, I've been training for sure. I'm going to Thailand actually like 3 days after this. So I knew like once I get to Thailand, I'm gonna have a fight within the week. So I was just training hard because I knew I was gonna be fighting soon. And then something popped up and I was ready.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I know that
exactly.
you fancy yourself some knees. How do you see
Mhm.
this fight playing out?
She's quite a bit shorter than me.
Shorter
I'm thinking,
distance to travel.
yeah, and it's kind of gonna be a different sub style as well. She's an IFMA champion. I'm a stadium fighter, so kind of different rhythms. But I think the first 2 rounds are going to be pretty difficult for me. I think she's going to come in pretty hot and have a lot of volume. I'm planning on using my teeps, and if she gets past teeps, long knees, elbows, because her punching range is my elbow range, and her kick range is my knee range. Like I'm probably about 5, 6 inches shorter or taller than her. So if she gets in, it's just elbows and knees all day. I think I'll start wearing her down by the third round and start building from third, fourth. Hopefully I can finish her. Since I'm going to be in enemy territory, it's probably going to be necessary to finish her. So if I get the finish, it'll probably be fourth or fifth round.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Now let's switch gears here just for a second. What was your Muay Thai moment? Like, what was that time, or maybe it was just maybe it was a day in the gym, maybe it was something that you watched, but that moment where it hooked you in and you knew that this was you, this was your path.
I think so. I didn't actually start Muay Thai. My first combat sport was actually boxing. But I think the first time like that was my gateway drug. And the first time I slapped on gloves, I was like, where has this been my whole life? Like this is my obsession now. And I never like every single day in the gym for the past like 12 years. Um, but I think what really hooked me into Muay Thai, probably when I won the Colorado State tournament in 2022 or 2023. I can't remember which year. I think that was the moment and I was like, oh, I can actually do this. Um, yeah. Just like that feeling of like, oh, this is all coming together now. I think that was it.
Okay, okay, that's well said there. I got to ask this on this end because I would not be able to do it, but as a school teacher by day and being around elementary kids, especially when it comes time to be cutting weight or to be low on calories, and you just you don't want all of the extra noise or all just the chatter, the little bugs that may come from the little ones, all of that. How much of it is a challenge for you to have to deal with that extra added element of adversity in the process? Or what at least I would
Um,
consider adversity being the childless person over here.
yeah. I think the biggest adversity I find from my career, from my job is like scheduling training. I think that's the hardest because I still train a lot. Like, I mean, I get my miles in. I run like 6 miles a day, plus like hitting pads, back work, clench work, everything. Weights, everything. I think that's the hardest part. I love kids, so they're little they don't bother me. Like I love them. And they're my biggest fans. And I'm hoping that, like by performing well in Muay Thai, like I can be an inspiration to them in some way. Um, but yeah, it's definitely difficult. I think we don't have a lot of school left, so I think the next 2 days might be a little bit of like mindfulness, like just trying to like stay cool because I am depleted on calories at the moment. Well, carbohydrates at least, but yeah. Um, the hardest part is just I don't have a social life. Like I work and then I'm at the gym until like 9 or 10 o'clock at night and I sleep and then do it again. That's my life. But I love it. I wouldn't This sport is like my true love. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the fight life in general, right? But so what you're telling me though is it's going to be a free for all in Miss Waffles class the next couple days.
Yes, we are doing coloring pages. We're gonna watch a movie. If it's nice, we're going outside. We're gonna leave Miss Waffles alone. For sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, I got to ask, what's the toughest thing for you to give up? You mentioned being short on calories. What is, if you had to say one thing that is just kind of your regular comfort or your go-to, what's the toughest thing for you to give up while you're in camp and while you're cutting?
Bread.
Bread?
Like, yeah, like yesterday I checked my weight and I'm on track. I'm doing pretty well. So I was like, oh, maybe I could just have like a buttery piece of toast this morning. And just like that like mental fight of like, no, Rebecca, no, was pretty rough. But like pasta and bread for sure. Like I have a sweet tooth. I have a really big sweet tooth, and my cheat hack is like a liqueur, or like however you say it, like carbonated water with a little bit of flavoring, because it just makes the bubbles make you feel a little more full, and then like it's like a little bit sweet. So I can get that out of the way, or like a little bit of dark chocolate I'll allow too, but bread, that's the one thing that really struggles with. Yeah, I miss it.
I could totally understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
the carbs would be very tough. And I mean, especially because you're still going through and you're training hard, so your body is asking for that replenishment. And if you're craving carbs, I could only imagine just the mental gymnastics that, that you're going through right now as you're, just a couple of days from stepping on the scale.
Yeah.
Now, I got to ask you, is there a song, a quote, maybe a movie scene, Bible passage, anything along those lines that tells the tale of Rebecca for this fight or for this camp?
What a question. Oh my gosh. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. Just that meme of like I got that dog inside of me. It was like cheesy as that is. But I don't know, I kind of think that's just how I feel, like, or maybe like, yeah, just I have like passion in the sport, and the only thing I can think of is like I got that dog inside of me. Like 1 week notice, okay, let's do this.
I don't think it's corny at all. I mean, I think that that's a pretty spot on or a pretty accurate answer. I get a wide variety of those. To me, it gives a pretty good insight as to the person behind the fighter. Like everybody has their masks, right? Like that you present out to the world and everything. But some of those questions kind of give you or kind of give me your introspective interpretation of yourself in those moments. So I don't know. It helps me kind of get to know a little bit more about all the fighters that I talk to on a different level. So,
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I think that's a really nice frame for that question as well, because when you fight, I think the most interesting thing about fighting is whatever mask you're wearing, it comes off. It's just like the bear. It's the bear. Who are you? And I feel like getting in a fist fight answers that question, is who am I? It's kind of weird. I have like such a duality of personalities where I'm kind of like Miss Honey as a teacher, and I'm really sweet and shy and nice and when I'm not fighting, but when I'm fighting, I'm mean. I'm very mean. I'm trying to finish. I'm never trying to point a fight. I'm always trying to finish it. So that like duality in me is quite weird.
I think that it maybe just seems weird because it's you, but from my position, like that's that fighter side, that's a true martial artist though too. I feel like you have that ability to channel it and you flick your switch, right? Like you flick your switch and you say it's game time. But as we're starting to tie some things up here, I just want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to get out there to your friends, family, supporters, team sponsors, anybody out there that we haven't hit yet?
Yeah, my biggest thing is thank you guys. Like the amount of love I have felt this week from my teammates and my friends and my family is just like it's just super motivating. Like I want to go out there and do well and make you guys proud. I mean, like they had a barbecue just now for Apex, and they're like making me chicken and zucchini and like weight cut friendly stuff, and I was like, this is so sweet. So um that, and you guys buy the pay-per-view. It helps you know, like the more eyes we get, the more it builds up Colorado Muay Thai. You know, we have a lot of really great fighters here, but all like Muay Thai is always on the coast, like New York and California, they get all the love. But, you know, like the more eyes we can get on us out here, the more we can build up the great fighters that we have here in Colorado and get more opportunities for us as well.
Absolutely. Is there a link that people can go to for the pay-per-view, and do you have a code?
Yes, the code. Ooh, that's a good question. They have not sent me the code yet, but there is a link on the page on Muay Thai World Cups page. And I will ask the promoter about. I didn't think about that. I'll ask the promoter about the link. Sorry, my mind has been like, wait, cut. Finding the hotel. Like, when can I go train? Yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Yep. Well, people will as long as we get that code for you, we'll put that up in the video and the graphic and all of that as well. So real quick, one last time, can you please let everybody know where they can follow along if they want to keep track on you and keep tabs on the fight and your career here?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on Mariposa dot Muay Thai on Instagram. I post a lot of like training videos. I'll be in Phuket all summer, so you guys can check that out. I'm sure I'm gonna get some really big fights that's gonna happen there too. Facebook and yeah, that's
All right,
yeah, and
folks. What?
sorry.
Oh, no, no, no. You're good. I didn't mean to cut you off at all. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to get out there?
No, just thank you guys for the support. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, there you have it right there, folks. Make sure that you check out the details and tune in for that pay-per-view this weekend. That is Rebecca Mariposa Watford. You can check her out. Again, fighting for the title this weekend, short notice, underdog gamer mentality, going in there to go and get that finish for the belt. Thank you so much for joining us here along.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Folks, stick around after the break. We'll get back to you with more original combat sports programming here on the MMA Plug presented to you by Mile High Sports.